Okay, calm down.
Wanted to start off asking you what your thoughts are about the latest developments in the war in Ukraine, this proxy war in Ukraine.
Well, we are very much concerned about what appears to be U.S. policy that does not want to in any way consider the possibility of some kind of negotiated settlement of this conflict. They have hung their coat on the hook of militarism and the belief that the Ukrainian military will have the ability to take back lost territory by force. They have hyped up this so-called offensive that apparently started a couple of days ago, but doesn't appear to be too successful. And therefore, we had this very dangerous development with the sabotage of the dam that just coincidentally impacts or might impact the ability of Russians who live in Crimea to have access to fresh water. So it's a very dangerous development. It is really heartbreaking, Katie, to see the continuation of this conflict, the conflict that did not have to happen. You know, I've been very clear in terms of my position on this conflict, one in which we don't, we saw the negotiation or so-called negotiations taking place between the Russian Federation and the U.S. Throughout 2021. But it became quite clear to me that the U.S. was pursuing a policy that was going to lead to some kind of conflict, even if the conflict was going to be just limited to the so-called Donbass. And to see this happen and to see the thousands of lives that have been lost unnecessarily is really heartbreaking. And it is appalling that we have so many people who seem to have been ready to cheer this conflict on, who still want to see it to continue, who are not morally appalled by the commentary from the Secretary of Defense, Lloyd Austin, who slipped up, being the amateur that he is, and revealed the real objective of U.S. policy, which basically is to weaken the Russian Federation.
We want to see Russia weakened to the degree that it can't do the kinds of things that it has done in invading Ukraine. So it has already lost a lot of military capability and a lot of its troops, quite frankly. And we want to see them not have the capability to very quickly reproduce that capability.
So this commitment, this decision to sacrifice the lives of Ukrainians to advance U.S. policy, to me, is morally indefensible, and it's incredible that so many people in the U.S. Continue to support this.
And why do you think that is? I mean, even among the left, among people who are sometimes critical of militarism and imperialism, there's kind of a split. What do you think that is due to?
I think it's partly as a consequence of the 5 years of propaganda, anti-Russian propaganda, that many people on the left fed into. The whole Russian Gate process was a process that conditioned the population and, incidentally, the U.S. left to accept the notion that the Russians were, in fact, some type of existential threat to the U.S. The simplistic framing of Putin as some kind of demon, and the notion that the Russians were only committed to some type of reinvention, if you will, of the Soviet Union. I mean, it was just so insulting and silly, but people bought into it. And so, you know, once the conflict got framed as a sort of moral crusade, if you will, and once the left started to, or some elements of the left started to frame the conflict using left phraseology around issues like the self-determination rights of Ukraine and all of that, I think it confused a lot of people, and that confusion continues to this day. And then you have, the development of various formations like the Ukrainian Solidarity Network, made up of many people who are liberals and on the left, who a few decades ago would be opposed to this conflict. They have now embraced it and embrace it as a moral conflict, and one in which they are prepared to support U.S. policy to the bitter end, if you will. So it's a strange phenomenon that I'm still trying to unpack.
And what do you say to the people who will bring up things like self-determination? What is your response to that argument?
That, I believe in self-determination as a principle, but it's also an abstract principle. And so the self-determination goes both ways. The people of the Donbass have been arguing for self-determination for some time, since 2014. The Russian Federation did not recognize that call for self-determination. And so, one has to look at these issues in a concrete way. It can't just be the abstract principles. So this notion of the self-determinant rights of Ukrainians has to be weighed concretely. Is, for example, well, I won't go there. So yes, so it is something that has to be dealt with. These are serious questions, and they require a serious analysis. But right now, analysis in the U.S. is strictly at the surface level, slogans and simplistic positions. And in the meantime, the war continues and people are dying.